Gramsci, Chapter 1, Section 2. Positivism and Neo-Idealism. But why was the struggle for modernity and against immobility raised in reference to the two great neo-idealist philosophers, and not in the official culture of the Socialist Party? Are not the great interest and admiration for the two great intellectuals of post-Risorgimento Italy and the identification with the lower classes incompatible positions? Later, Gramsci will recall a phrase by Camillo Prampolini: Italy is divided between North and South. Not much different is Torati's opinion, who, identifying the South with regression and barbarism, laments the presence of two nations in one nation, two Italys in Italy, and therefore condemns the forced and anti-physiologic coupling of the decrepit South with the rigid North. The culture of the Socialist Party of that time also doesn't help to resolve or even to understand the Southern question, of which it has a naturalistic and even racial interpretation. Quote, the South is the lead ball that impedes faster progress towards the civil development of Italy. The Southerners are biologically inferior beings, semi-barbarian or fully barbarian, by natural destiny. If the South is behind, it is not the fault of the capitalist system or any other historical cause, but of nature, which has made the Southerners lazy, incapable, criminal, barbaric. The Socialist Party was in great part the vehicle of this bourgeois ideology in the Northern proletariat. The Socialist Party gave its anointing to all the Southernist literature of the so-called positive school of writers like Ferry, Sergi, Niceforo, Orono, and their lesser henchmen. That in articles, tales, stories, novellas, print, and scrapbooks, all repeated in different ways the same chorus. Once more, science was used to crush the meager and exploited, but this time it was dressed in socialist colors and pretending to be the science of the proletariat. The adolescent Gramsci, who shares the hardships of his people and of other unfortunate peoples, rejects this ideology and does not accept being labeled a barbarian and that they confine him among the barbarians. Already in a school essay, he observes, the privileges and the social differences, being the product of society and not of nature, can be overcome. This is why Gramsci considers that the neo-idealist culture is superior not only on the philosophical, but also in the political, since even though it doesn't mention the capitalist system, in any case it refuses to abandon the terrain of history. The neo-idealist culture continued to demonstrate its superiority during the First World War. The case of Guillermo Ferrero, collaborator of the Crítica Social and positivist influenced by Lombroso, can be considered exemplary. Between the 19th and 20th centuries, he criticizes the central government for the pretense he attributes to it of maintaining the idle regions at the expense of the laboring regions. Like the Southern Italian question, the Irish question is also interpreted by him in an anthropological key. The dominating energy and the other singular energies of the Anglo-Saxon race are confronted with a Celtic character, in which the lightness of enthusiasm, the choleric impatience, and the undisciplined spirit and reluctance to organize predominate. Not even the fanatical and missionary character attributed to Crispy seems alien to the Albanian blood, which is rumored to run in his veins. In the same terms in which he interpreted the Southern Italian question and the Irish question, Ferrero, in the years preceding the First World War, interpreted the contrast on a European and world scale between the prodigious development of the Germanic races, the peoples of Germany, England, and the United States, and the immobility or backwardness of the Latin races living on the riches accumulated in the past. When the war broke out, the Germanism-Latinity dichotomy remained, but he interpreted it in an anti-German and exclusively anti-German key. He does so in order to condemn, together with the Second Reich of Wilhelm II, what would be a mythical eternal Germany. His criticism focuses on Hegel's philosophy, the spread of which evokes the barbarian invasions. Quote, when the Hegelianism of the northern countries, where it had seen the light, went out into the world and tried to cross the frontiers of the ancient empire of Rome, it aroused with its appearance a kind of horror. This evil sophistry, which confused all the criteria of good and evil in the service of all opportunists, be they people, state, classes, parties, or individuals causes the highest, deepest, and noblest spirits of the Latin countries to shudder. End quote. Croce and Gentile mock these anthropological paradigms. The liberalism of the two neoliberal philosophers, steeped in historical culture, is more lucid than certain currents of Anglo-Saxon liberalism, which are also prone to naturalized conflict. Let's set aside the social Darwinism of Spencer. The topics that Ferrero deals with can also be found in an author like John Stuart Mill. The English liberal negatively contrasts the Anglo-Saxons not only, of course, with the barbarians who have not gone beyond the savage or almost savage state, and are the great majority of the human race, but also with the peoples of southern Europe, whose indolence and envy prevent the development of an industrial society, the consolidation of a leading group, and the orderly function of institutions. In those years, Ireland did not seem to share the Anglo-Saxon glory, since it was in a situation of serious backwardness and endured brutal British occupation. When, towards the end of the 19th century, a distinguished personality of that epoch's liberal culture, the historian Lecky, invited the government of London to adopt a conciliatory policy towards the Irish, he does so with the argument that the Irish are, after all, also part of the great Aryan race. But this is not the most widespread opinion. Rather, it is insisted that the Irish Celts are a different race from the Anglo-Saxon or Teutonic race, which also includes Germany and the United States. In 1869, Lord Robert Cecil, the future Marquis of Salisbury and future English Prime Minister, contrasted the people of southern climates with those of the Teutonic ancestry. In 1899, Joseph Chamberlain, Minister of Colonies, made an official appeal to Germany and the United States to arrange, together with his country, a Teutonic alliance. And like Ferrero, the English liberal, or liberal positive culture, at the outbreak of the First World War, did not hesitate to revise these topics with an anti-German function. There is no doubt, by starting from Croce and Gentile, Gramsci starts from philosophers who at that time were among the authors who expressed the most advanced European and world culture. We then understand his harsh judgment on positivism, which in Gramsci is equivalent to the naturalization in different forms of the historical process. Essentially positivist is the vision of the history of Action Française. For Daudet and Maurras, society is like a plant, the plant of the golden fleur-de-lis of the millennial dynasty of the French kings. It sinks its roots into the peculiar soul of the French race and people. These positivist Catholics base their entire argument on the pseudo-concepts of race, region, soul, order, hierarchy, and inheritance. For them, the revolution is not of French origin. Rather, it comes from the Protestant Reformation. If John Stuart Mill considers that continuous revolutionary revolts in France are a kind of hereditary disease of a people gnawed by envy and anarchism, the Action Française denounces in those same revolts a disease caused by an external pathogenic agent. Although they are different and opposite value judgments, both positions share the evasion of the terrain of history and the recourse to the anthropological paradigm, or as Gramsci says in Croatian terms, pseudo-concepts.